Karen thought my porch was an embarrassment to the neighborhood. She said it loud enough for the mailman, 2 joggers, and a very confused cat to hear. But instead of arguing, complaining, or hiding inside like she expected, I decided to give her something so jaw-dropping, so unbelievably over the top, that the entire street wouldn't stop talking about it for weeks. And trust me, Karen was absolutely not ready for what was coming. Did I live in a neighborhood where everyone minds their own business? Well, everyone except Karen. She's the self-appointed visual standards inspector, even though we don't actually have an HOA. She watches from her window like it's a full-time job, just waiting for someone to commit a crime such as leaving a watering can out overnight. So when she walked past my porch one morning and said, "Oh, your porch looks messy. Could you at least try to keep it presentable?" I froze, because my porch wasn't messy. It had a pair of boots, a potted fern, and a welcome mat. That's it. But to Karen, if something isn't beige, boring, and lifeless, she hates it. Normally, I'd ignore her, but something inside me clicked. Maybe it was the way she wrinkled her nose like I was ruining the planet. Maybe it was the way she said messy, like she expected me to apologize. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, "What exactly do you think is messy?" She pointed at the fern. I nodded, smiled politely, and said, "Thanks for your concern, Karen. I'll take care of it." But what I meant was, I'm going to create the most beautiful, extravagant, ridiculously magical porch display this neighborhood has ever seen. If Karen wanted presentable, I was about to present her with something unforgettable. That night, I pulled out a notebook and sketched ideas. Flower arches, hanging lanterns, a vertical garden wall, maybe even a miniature koi pond if I got ambitious. What started as a simple idea turned into a full architectural plan for what could only be described as a giant garden display worthy of a botanical festival. The best part? I decided to build it entirely by myself, not out of spite, but because transforming my porch into a living masterpiece sounded like the most fun I'd had all year. And if it happened to make Karen's eyes twitch, well, that was just a bonus. By morning, lumber, soil bags, and flower crates were already stacked in my driveway. Karen saw them from across the street, and her reaction was priceless. The moment Karen spotted the supplies stacked in my driveway, her face tightened like she'd bitten into a lemon dipped in vinegar. She marched straight over, slippers flapping, robe fluttering dramatically as if she was storming a castle instead of crossing a suburban cul-de-sac. "What is all this?" she demanded, pointing at the bags of soil like they were explosives. I smiled. "Just cleaning up the porch like you suggested." Her eyes narrowed. She knew I was up to something, she just didn't know what yet. But Karen hates not knowing things, especially if she suspects she won't approve. As she walked off, mumbling about property standards, I started building the first piece of my plan, a wooden trellis archway that would frame my entire porch. I measured, cut, sanded, and assembled it right there in the front yard. Every few minutes, Karen peeked out from her blinds like a raccoon guarding a trash bin. By noon, the archway was up. By 3, I had installed planter boxes along the railing. By sunset, I had finished hanging warm amber string lights that gave the whole front porch a gentle, magical glow. Neighbors walking their dogs slowed down to watch. "Wow, this looks amazing," one said. "Is there a festival or something?" asked another. I laughed. "Nope, just cleaning." Karen overheard, not because she was nearby, but because she was literally positioned behind her curtain with binoculars. Yes, binoculars. I saw the glint from across the street. The next morning, I added the centerpiece, a towering, vertical garden wall. This wasn't just any wall. It had a built-in irrigation strip, layered pockets for different plants, and a frame that I painted forest green. The moment I set it upright, the entire porch transformed from nice to "this belongs in a magazine." That's when Karen marched across the lawn again. "You can't put that there," she snapped. "There's no HOA," I reminded her sweetly. It's too big." "It's just a garden wall," I said, checking my leveler. Still cleaning. She huffed so hard I swear the vertical garden swayed a little. But the real moment of triumph came later that afternoon when I planted dozens of blooming flowers. Marigolds, petunias, roses, lavender, each one adding more color and fragrance. Butterflies began fluttering in like I had opened a nature portal. A couple strolling by actually stopped to take photos. "This is gorgeous," they said. Karen, watching from her driveway, looked like she was trying very hard not to combust, and I wasn't even halfway done. By day 3, my porch looked less like a simple home entrance and more like the opening scene of a garden commercial. But I wasn't finished, not even close. If Karen thought the vertical garden was too big, she was about to experience a whole new level of neighborhood shock. I started early that morning, right as the sun peeked over the rooftops. Birds were chirping, the air smelled like fresh soil, and I had a brand new plan, a full botanical pathway leading from the sidewalk to my porch. Not just stepping stones. An entire walkway lined with mini shrubs, solar lantern stakes, and clusters of flowers arranged by color gradient. Pastel pinks on the left, deep violets on the right. A natural rainbow that guided visitors like a floral red carpet. As I worked, more neighbors stopped by. "Are you hosting a wedding here?" One joked. "Feels like a public garden," said another. But the best reaction came from the kids down the street. They treated it like a magical forest path, carefully tiptoeing along the stones so they wouldn't disturb the fairies. Their excitement made the work feel even more worthwhile. Karen, however, viewed it all like I was constructing a nuclear reactor. She stood on her lawn, arms crossed, lips pursed, eyes squinting at every leaf I planted. "How long is this going to take?" she asked, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. "Oh, not long," I said. "I'm almost done with the walkway. Then I just have the fountain to install." Her head snapped toward me so fast I thought she pulled something. "Fountain?" "Yep," I said, lifting a small circular basin from my car. "Just a little one." To be fair, little was technically true, if you consider a 3-tiered stone fountain little. I placed it right in the center of the pathway, surrounded it with smooth river pebbles, and wired the pump. When I flipped the switch, the sound of trickling water filled the entire front yard with peaceful ambience. Neighbors actually applauded. Karen looked personally offended by the noise of falling water. "You're turning this street into a theme park," she shouted. I smiled. "No, Karen. I'm turning it into a garden." By afternoon, butterflies were everywhere, bees buzzed happily around the lavender, and even the older neighbors came by to admire the transformation. What started as cleaning up my porch had turned into a full-blown attraction. But just as I stepped back to admire my progress, Karen did something I absolutely did not expect. Karen stormed across the sidewalk with the determination of someone preparing to file a neighborhood-wide lawsuit. She didn't knock. She didn't call out. She simply marched straight up my brand new garden pathway, past the pastel flowers, past the shrubs, past the solar lanterns, and stopped only when she reached the fountain, staring at it like it had personally wronged her. "This has gone far enough," she declared, hands on hips, voice trembling with outrage. I stayed calm. "Karen, it's just a garden." "No," she snapped. "It's a spectacle. And it's attracting people." Which, ironically, was true. 2 neighbors were literally taking selfies near the vertical garden wall at that exact moment. Karen pointed at them dramatically. "See, strangers are coming into our neighborhood to look at your horticultural chaos." I almost laughed. "Those aren't strangers, Karen. They live 3 houses down." She ignored me entirely. Instead, she pulled a folded paper from her robe pocket. "I've drafted a petition. We, the residents of Maple Heights, demand the immediate removal of this." She waved her hand around wildly. "This garden display." I blinked. "A petition? Really?" She thrust it at me. There were exactly 0 signatures. Not even her own. Before I could respond, another neighbor approached, Mrs. Delgado, the sweetest lady on the block. She looked at the petition, frowned, then put a gentle arm around Karen. "Dear, this is beautiful," she said, gesturing at my porch. "You should appreciate something lovely for once." Karen pulled away like she had been struck. "Lovely? Lively? It's ruining the uniform aesthetic." "There is no uniform aesthetic," Mrs. Delgado reminded her kindly. Karen's eye twitched. More neighbors gathered, curious. Some complimented the colors, others the fountain, and one asked if I could help design their front yard next. With each positive comment, Karen wilted a little more, like a houseplant forgotten in the sun. Finally, she exploded. "Fine. If everyone loves it so much, I'll prove what a nuisance it is." She pulled out her phone and dialed someone. Fast. I heard her hiss into the speaker. "Yes, I'd like to report a code violation. It's urgent." The neighbors gasped. One whispered, "She didn't." Oh, she absolutely did. 20 minutes later, a white pickup truck with the city code inspector rolled up. Clipboard. sunglasses, official badge, the whole deal. Karen greeted him like she had just summoned a hero. "Thank goodness you're here," she said, pointing at my porch garden like it was a biohazard. The inspector walked up slowly, looked at the flowers, the trellis, the lights, the fountain, and then turned to me with a completely unreadable expression. My heart thumped. Then he said something that shocked every single person on the street, including Karen. The inspector took a long breath, lifted his sunglasses, and looked directly at Karen first, then at me, then back at the garden like he was analyzing a priceless art piece. The entire neighborhood stood frozen. Even the fountain seemed to trickle more quietly, as if waiting for the verdict. Finally, he spoke. "This is gorgeous." Karen's jaw dropped so hard I swear it almost hit a petunia. The inspector stepped closer to the trellis, running his hand along the frame. Excellent craftsmanship. Very sturdy. And these planter boxes, beautiful work. He leaned in to smell the lavender. "You've actually improved the curb appeal of the entire street." Karen's face turned the exact color of the roses by my porch railing. "Improved. Improved. I called you because this is a violation." The inspector checked his clipboard. "Well, I don't see anything here that breaks any city code. No structures blocking sidewalks, no water runoff issues, no electrical hazards. Everything is well within regulation." He glanced back at me. "Honestly, more people should do this." Neighbors murmured in agreement. Someone clapped. A kid said, "Yay, garden guy," which earned me a high five. Karen was absolutely unraveling. But the fountain, the walkway, the colors, it's all too much. The inspector shrugged. It's a garden, not a nightclub." A few neighbors snickered. Karen shot them a glare sharp enough to cut through steel. "In fact," the inspector continued, turning to me again, "would you mind if I take a picture? My wife has been wanting ideas for our yard." Karen's mouth fell open again, but this time no sound came out. I tried not to smile too triumphantly. "Of course," I said. "Take as many as you want." He photographed the walkway, the vertical garden, the fountain, every piece of it. Karen looked ready to faint. When he finished, he handed me a small card. "If anyone gives you trouble about this again, give me a call." Then he looked at Karen. "And unless you've got another emergency garden complaint, I'll be on my way." He tipped his hat and drove off. Silence. Then, suddenly, applause. The neighbors started cheering, actual cheering, as butterflies fluttered around like nature was celebrating too. People congratulated me, complimented the design, and one even asked if I'd consider entering a local gardening competition. Karen, meanwhile, stomped across her lawn, muttering something about moving to a quieter neighborhood. As she slammed her door, Mrs. Delgado leaned toward me and whispered, "Sweetheart, you won." I looked at my porch, my giant, blooming, glowing garden display, and smiled. I hadn't just cleaned it up. I'd transformed it. And in the process, I'd transformed the whole mood of the neighborhood too. And best of all, Karen hasn't complained about my porch ever since. As Karen slammed her door with enough dramatic force to shake the welcome mat, Mrs. Delgado leaned in with a gentle smile and whispered, "Sweetheart, you won." I turned toward my porch, this giant, blooming, glowing garden display that now looked like something straight out of a botanical magazine, and I couldn't help but smile back. What started as a simple suggestion to clean up had turned into a masterpiece, a statement, a transformation. Not just of my porch, not just of my home, but of the whole neighborhood. People walked by happier. Kids stopped to admire the flowers. Neighbors chatted where they used to hurry past each other. The street felt alive, vibrant, welcoming, and the best part, Karen hasn't complained about my porch ever since.